Welcome to Sermons from Silver Moon with Pastor Phil Barber of the Silver Moon Full Gospel Church. The Silver Moon Full Gospel Church is committed to preaching the Word of God and invites you to join them for Sunday morning worship at 10 a.m. and Wednesday night service at 6:30. Now, here's Pastor Phil Barber with today's message.
2 Kings chapter 7. We'll be in 6 and 7. And the title of this message is, I Cannot Stay Here. Or, as a group, we cannot stay here. And we're going to read 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 and 4. It'll be our text. We will refer to the whole story as we go through it, and we will repeat these verses later. There were 4 men with a skin disease at the entrance to the gate city. They had leprosy. They said to each other, why do we sit here until we die? There's no food in the city. So if we go into the city, we will die there. If we stay here, we will die. So let's go to the Aramean camp. If they let us live, we will live. If they kill us, we die. Or as one version says towards the end, we got nothing to lose, so let's go. See what's happening. All of us are somewhere this morning. And I'm not talking about just physically that you're here. We're somewhere spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and bodily. We're somewhere in our marriage, in our career, in our finances, in our relationship, in our education journey. Some of us are alone. Some of us are depressed. Some of us are broke. Some of us are sick. Some of us are hurting. Some of us are jobless, and some of us have a horrible job. Some of us are just disappointed with life. Some of us are in a bad marriage. I hope not, but there are people in bad marriage, and we have people listening to us. We didn't get married to have a roommate. Some of us have children, and children that are difficult, children that break our hearts. Remember when someone said, well, you ought to have kids? You say, well, that sounds great. And have you ever thought, now, how can I give these kids back? You love them, but they're taxing. Some of us want children. Some want a partner and a ring on their finger. Some want their partner to pay attention to them. Today you're in a bad place. A bad place in your life, a bad place in your marriage. And you're thinking, I can't stay here. But I don't see God working. And I don't believe He will. Some of you saying, I want to connect to someone. I want to be with someone. Some might be just saying, I want one night of sleep because I'm always tired. And I'm tired of being tired. Some want enough money just to get through 1 month without worrying. Some want one day without pain or illness or sickness. Some want one day without worry or trouble. We're just stuck in a bad situation. Bad relationship, lousy job, bad marriage. We're stuck with an illness and can't seem to get rid of it, and we're surrounded by problems. And you're saying, I just do not know what to do. I need some help. I need some wisdom. I need some direction. But I know I can't stay here. But I don't know where to go, what to do, what to say. Where can I turn? Where can I go? What should I do? Well, this morning I want to look at some people who are in a bad place. And we'll start with 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 24. And the point number 1 is the dilemma. They are surrounded by a mighty army. An army that surrounded them before and left, but they have returned. Verse 24 says, later, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, gathered, and this is Syria, but gathered his whole army and surrounded and attacked Samaria. These enemies have returned. They've come out against them, and Israel's in an all-out war. He surrounded the city. He's cut off the supplies, which means no one can come into the city and no one can leave the city. And this was a standard method of fighting wars in ancient times. Sieges were designed to starve the inhabitants of a city either into surrender, or they became so weak that were unable to put up any resistance against the enemy. And so the result of this city being under siege is they're in a severe famine, and they're surrounded by an army, a mighty army, and they don't know what they're going to do. But the result of being surrounded is they're starving. Verse 25. There was a shortage of food in Samaria. It was so bad that a donkey's head sold for about 2 pounds of silver, and half of a pint of a dove's dung sold for about 2 ounces of silver. It was so bad that people were eating horses and donkeys. A donkey was an unclean animal and would never been eaten in normal times by Jewish people. But now the situation is so bad that even the head, probably the most ordinary part, worthless part of the body, they wouldn't even throw it away. And it cost a small fortune. There wasn't much nutrition in a donkey's head. It is an unclean animal, and yet it was fetching high prices. Using today's cost of silver, this donkey's head would have cost you $994.24. And if you couldn't afford a donkey's head, you could buy some dove's dung or pigeon droppings to eat. Might ruin your appetite for lunch today. I want you to remember there was plenty of money and plenty of silver and gold. But you can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. And you can't eat money. But there wasn't any food. And these people were starving. That's their dilemma. That's their situation. But I want you to see how the desperation in this story also. Not only were they eating donkey heads and pigeon droppings or turtle dove dung, the king is walking along the wall, probably on top of the wall, over looking at the enemy. And a woman cries out to him and says, I need your help. Help me. And he says, lady, there's nothing to eat. We have no food. There's nothing I can do. And she keeps complaining and yelling at him. He says, what's wrong? What can I do? I've told you there's no food. She said, well, yesterday, my neighbor and I, another woman, agreed to eat my child. And as I was looking at this, and there are times in history when this really, really happened. And it happened here. This is true too, but it's happened since then. And we agreed in this deal that we would eat her child today. But she has hidden that child. Now I want you to order her to share that child so we can eat it. And the king is so upset, so frustrated. Things are so bad that he tore off his clothes and he put on sackcloth. But this king was not a godly king. He was not repenting. He was a worshiper of Baal. He was mad. And he was mad at the man of God, Elijah. And he was going to do something about Elijah. It's amazing to think that you have the great prophet Elijah living in this time, and things are so desperate, so dark, so difficult. Think about that. Elijah, a man of miracles, twice as many as Elijah. Elijah who followed Elijah, and yet they're in this difficult situation, and he wants to blame the man of God. But the Bible in the book of Deuteronomy, we won't look at it, you can look at it, but God told them that when you turn away from me, these things are going to happen. And now this has happened to the northern kingdom of Israel, Samaria. Remember, after Solomon's death, the kingdoms divided. And Samaria became so wicked that eventually God would carry it off. And we've had what we call the lost 10 tribes of Israel. They're not all lost. God knows where they're at. But they didn't go to Utah, okay? And if you're not a Mormon, you may not get that. But things are bad. They're difficult. But Elijah, in his ministry, has delivered out delivered the children of Israel out of the enemy's hands before. Remember when Elijah brought victory over the Moabites, or when Naaman was healed of leprosy. Remember when they counted the angelic host, and it's the story we use where there's more for us than against us. And God asked Elijah said, "Open up my servant's eyes so he could see the angelic host." So God has delivered before. God has met their need before, but things are bad. I mean, they're eating donkey head, they're eating pigeon dung droppings, they're eating people. It's bad. And in the midst of this bad situation, in this dilemma, in this difficult time, we have a word of declaration. When it's as bad as it can get, God's prophet speaks. And let's see what he says in verse 1 and 2. Or verse 1. Listen to the Lord's word. This is what the Lord says about this time tomorrow. 7 quarts of fine flour will be sold for 2/5 of an ounce of silver. 2/5 of an ounce of silver. Now, we're spending $900 for a donkey's head, but all of a sudden, prices are going up. And 13 quarts of barley will be sold for 2/5 of an ounce of silver. This will happen at the gate of Samaria. Now listen. Elijah gives them a promise. He gives them a promise that God is going to provide. A promise that God is going to give them a banquet. A promise that they will have more than enough to eat. But you know what Elijah did not give them? He did not give them an explanation. He did not tell them how it would happen. A lot of us need to understand that God is not going to explain it to you. He's going to give you a promise. Whether you're going to believe it or you're going to believe it not, or whether you're not. But let me tell you what. He did not give me an explanation. He did not tell them how it was going to happen. All they can see is a city surrounded by a mighty army, and they're eating one another. So when he makes this promise, we have a declaration of faith, a declaration of promise, a declaration that God will provide, but then we come up with a declaration of doubt. Somebody hears this message, and one leader says in verse 2, then the officer who was close to the king answered Elijah, even if the Lord opened windows in the sky, which couldn't happen. And some of you are sitting here this morning and you never really believe, you never really trust, you never really step out, you never really put yourself out there because you don't think it'll happen. He saw the negative and you see the negative. And we must always remember that we walk by faith and not by sight. I don't know if Abraham and Sarah would have left their home if God gave them an explanation. Here's how it's all going to pan out. I don't know if Moses would have gone back to Egypt and said to Pharaoh, let my people go, if he would have seen the whole story, a promise or doubt. And Elijah says to that man that spoke in doubt, you will see it with your eyes, but you will not eat any of it. Or I'd like to put it this way, you will see it, but you won't taste it. Now, there's 4 guys, and we're going to look at their decision. They weren't there when the promise was given, but they'll enjoy the provision of the promise. Well, let's look at verse 3. There were 4 men with a skin disease at the entrance of the city gate. They said to each other, why do we sit here until we die? There's no food in the city. So if we go into the city, we will die there. If we stay here, we will die. So let's go to the Aramean camp. If they let us live, we will live. If they kill us, we'll die. What do we have to lose? The lepers are starving. Now let me tell you something. It's bad. But when it's bad for everybody else, it's even worse for the lepers. They're outcast. They get the leftovers of the leftovers. And if someone took care of them, it would have been a family member. But guess what? If a donkey's head cost $934, they weren't getting much from family. And you may think today, I'm on the bottom. I'm the down and outer of all the down and outers. There's losers, but I'm a bigger loser. I have it worse than everybody. And these are guys who have as bad as it can be. No matter how bad it was headed for anybody else, it was worse for them. And you may think, I'm at the bottom, and there's no hope for me. They have a choice. These men are starving like everybody else. They say we can die in the city, we can die out of the city, or we can take our chance with the enemy. And they made a conclusion. We cannot stay here. Let's go to the enemy camp. They might kill us. If they kill us, we die, but we're dying anyway. We have nothing to lose. And so let's look at their discovery. Verses 5 and 7. So they go to the enemy camp. Let's see what happens. So they arose at twilight. That's not a very good underline, but you need to notice the word at twilight, okay? You'll see why. So they arose at twilight, or at dusk, I think most of your Bibles say, to go to the camp of the Syrians. But when they came to the edge of the camp of the Syrians, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had made the army of the Syrians hear the sound of chariots and horses, the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, behold, the king of Israel is hired against us, the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Egypt to come against us. So they fled away in the, what word? Twilight. As soon as they moved, God moved. We can't stay here. As soon as they moved, God moved. I'm going to encourage you to move, to draw near to God and let God draw near to you. So they fled away in the twilight and abandoned their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, leaving the camp as it was, and fled for their lives. The last thing the lepers expected to find, that's where the way it is usually with God. You find something that you weren't expecting. It's the reverse. The biggest losers, the guys at the very bottom, turn out to be the biggest winners. They turn out to be on top. This ridiculous, what this one man said, this ridiculous, unbelievable prediction is coming true. They walk into this camp and they gorge themselves, and I don't blame them. Then they started to walk through the tents, and they picked up these clothes. I don't know, Hart Schaffner marks, polo shirts with those pretty little horses on them. I don't know if you like Wrangler jeans, Lee jeans, or you don't like jeans, but whatever you like, it's there. I mean, they're dressing up. Not only that, there's gold and silver and coins. And they start gathering those things together, and they think, well, we start burying them. Burying all these coins, all these riches. I mean, it's a day of good news. It's a happy day. God gave them a miracle. They feasted, they gathered, they laughed. It was a great time for them. But while they were going through this, their conscience got the better of them. And they have a day, and it's called the day of good news. Look at verse 9. Then they said to each other, we're doing wrong. This is amazing to me. And it's really not in my message, but it is in my mind and my thoughts is this. These guys are going to bless people, for the most part, who wouldn't bless them. God's not going to let you stay mad. He's not going to let you be mean. If he's going to bless you, he wants you to be a person that shares and gives. He wants you to hold grudges. You don't want you to be mad. They said to each other, we're doing wrong. Today we have good news. We are silent. If we wait until the sun comes up, we'll be discovered. Let's go right now and tell the people in the king's power. This is a day of good news. Everybody in the city is going to be overjoyed. They're going to be thrilled. They're going to be happy. Let's tell people what happened. And let me tell you something. There was a time back in history when 70 Jewish scholars translated the Hebrew Bible into the Greek, and it's called the LXX, and you'll see that sometimes in your reading. And this word in this very Bible, in this very place, is translated in the Greek, good news, or the word we get for gospel. Very word. We have some good news to share with these people. This is the word that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John talked about. This is the word that the Apostle Paul talks about. It's a word like today is the day of salvation. That's a good news. We have good news to share. And there was plenty for everybody. As God promised, let's remember this, there was more than enough. And we should know God as the God who has more than enough. Say that, God gives more than enough. Say it with me, God gives more than enough. Plenty of food. There was more than enough for everyone. Good news is for sharing, and everyone must know. There's two dynamics going on here. Here are these lepers who are regarded as being under a curse from God. No one trusted them. And then we have a king over here. Ungodly king. And he's not a believing man. And he hears the news, and you know what he does? I don't know what you're thinking while I'm trying to encourage you. But when he heard the news is, he didn't trust. No, this can't be. I don't believe it happened. There's 4 lepers. Small faith. Not much has gone for them. And yet they got up and moved. And here is the king is being told, the camp's ours. It's all ours. And he says, I don't believe. And remember, as far as I know that the 4 lepers didn't move because of Elijah's promise. But here is the king who had Elijah's promise, and he's being told that it's been fulfilled, and he says, I don't believe. If I just made it towards salvation, there'll be people in hell who've heard the good news and did not believe and refused to go. Well, thank goodness this king had somebody who had some sense. It doesn't look like they had a lot of horses, but he said, let's take a couple of horses. And the reason they were eating the horses, but I just give me your own opinion, the reason they had a few horses left was if the king thought he had to leave, he'd have a chariot to get him out of the city. Let's take a couple horses. And so let's go check it out. Let's go see what happens. Let's see if there's enough food. And they go check it out. And when the whole city hears, they're starving to death, that the enemy is gone and the camp is still there, food is there, clothes are there, everything we need is there. They rush out of the city. And the one guy who said it can't happen, even if the window's open, it can't happen, they crushed him in the stampede. These people rescued. God broke through. What type of person do you want to be? This man who said it can't be, the word of the Lord was fulfilled there. Elijah said, you will see it, but you won't taste it. I want to be a person who sees and tastes. I don't want to be a little doubting Thomas all the time. I want to get rid of the spirit which says, how could God possibly accomplish that or solve this in my life? I want to be the person that says, of course God can. I want to be the person that says, I believe God. I want to be the person that says, I will cling to God and I will trust him with my life. Because I want to see God work. But I also want to enjoy it. I want to taste it. I want to be like Elijah. I want to be like these 4 lepers. I want to get up. Faith means being sure of the things we hope for, knowing that something is real even if we don't see it. God's going to always ask you to believe before you see it. Have faith in God. Too much of our lives are swallowed up in doubt and we're discouraged to believe God, and we don't trust Him, and we don't think that God could possibly come through. We imagine God sometimes as helpless. And we're not careful, we'll gently remind God that we don't see any way out of our predicament. Some of us think God has failed us and left us. Things are too far gone now. When I'm telling you this story, it's as bad as it can get. When you're down to eating one another, it's as bad as it can get. Well, some of us don't believe that God can solve our dilemmas in life and our problems in life, but I want to encourage you to believe in Him, to trust Him. And when you pray, be honest with God and express your fears and your doubts. That's okay to tell God how you feel. Jeremiah did, the church did, Moses did, God's people do, but always circle back to faith. Always come back to the promises of God. Always come back to what God has told you you'll do. Tell God you will overcome. Tell the devil you'll overcome. Tell yourself you overcome. I was thinking as Christina was talking about preach to yourself. A long time ago when I was a young pastor, I came across a sermon by Martin Lloyd Jones. He was talking about preach to yourself, Psalm 40. I don't believe I've ever shared what I got out of that, but preach to yourself. Tell yourself the promises of God over and over again. Sing them to yourself again and again. Tell yourself that He has overcome, and because He has overcome, I will overcome. Tell yourself, I'm going to trust Him. I'm going to believe in Him. Tell Him, I know, God, you're going to work in my life. Taste it, and He'll come through. God will give us deliverance. It may not seem like it today, but He will. God acted miraculously and delivered this city from the threat. Think about this. Good news was passed on by the unclean, the unlikely, the most. If you have thought, why would I listen to 4 lepers? Yet they had the good news. But 4 guys had good news. And I have good news for you. That God will come through. But you have to move. One guy wasn't going to move. He didn't believe, and he got trampled over. The 4 lepers, they moved. Maybe you're like the king, and you need a friend to say, let's send a chariot out and see what happens. If you're sitting there, I want to encourage you. Let's see what happens. You know you can't stay where you're at. You need a miracle. I can't stay here. I have to move.
Thank you for listening to Sermons from Silver Moon with Pastor Phil Barber. To find out more about today's message, you may contact the Silver Moon Full Gospel Church at 417-472-3360. The Silver Moon Full Gospel Church is located on Highway 59 North between Neosho and Diamond, Missouri. Morning worship is at 10 a.m. with a Wednesday night service at 6:30 p.m. The Silver Moon Full Gospel Church, where the distance is worth the difference.